Building for the big earthquake. Is this possible? To answer the question or to help in answering the question, we have to first understand what can likely happen to the land itself in the event of a big earthquake. So, essentially speaking, the region of Bull Bay will more than likely be sunken. You would have seen in my video where I would have been discussing the nature of the geology as well as what indicators reveal in terms of past activity. But here now, through these satellite images, I am now sharing with you these ponds and the reality now that the nature of these ponds and where they're located reflect one, high water table, two, the reality that in the context of the soils can also function as somewhat, let's just say, clay-like. And then three, that in the context of shaking that seismic event will result in, then more than likely you will experience a sinking further of, let's just say, the overall land that your building is located on. Now, for those of you who may be wondering just how deep this sinking can actually be, let's take note of what the current reality is for parts of Port Royal. So as per this Google search highlight, parts of Port Royal have sunken average 3 to 10 feet and as much as 12 meters or 40 feet. Now, this gives an extent to the, let's just say, trace at which the fault can rupture. And in so doing, it basically is indicating that where these sections of Bull Bay are that can actually have the trace pass along on it or pass through it, then more than likely, sections of Bull Bay can sink, let's just say, a meter, 3 meters to as much as 12 meters further. Now, know briefly that the section of Bull Bay that I'm making reference to is the section that exists closer to, let's just say, the coastline. So that's more of the sandy beach location. For those sections of Bull Bay and surrounding communities that are more on the hilly sections or the hilly terrain, the outcome may be different. Now, to help you to understand how so, look at these satellite images. So on this image, you can see settlement on top of the hill, and you can also see settlement within the valley. Now, the settlement that is on top of the hill can experience let's just say, subsidence, like dropping into a sinkhole. And then now, for the settlement that is within the valley between the hill, given the nature of the geology that more likely will go underneath the ground in that respect, then it more likely will just be a degree of some sinking, but not too deep, right? But nevertheless, the shaking will still be relatively violent. For this imagery, the expression I would have made a while ago would more likely be applicable to here as well. This is more likely going to be a significant amount of shaking because this location is more so underlain by volcanics as well as the impure limestone. So it will be relatively similar to what I just described. Now, just keep this in mind that with all I would have just mentioned a while ago, this more so relates to the rupturing of the Plantingan fault system. If it's a case that it's a Wagwater fault system that is rupturing, then it could be somewhat of the reverse. So those locations that, say for example, I would have mentioned could experience sinking, it could be an upthrust. And in so doing, it still can be a disastrous outcome for your building, especially in the context whereby, the building will be pretty much uprooted further from its foundation, as an example. So that can still be the worst case scenario in this respect. To add some support to what it is I've just highlighted thus far, let's look at these satellite images. This is a section near to Bubble Hill where there is this depression and this steep-sided scarp of, let's just say, a landslip face. You can see that the sided scarp, it looks like it's somewhat of a cliff face. And then just immediately beneath that, there is this hole, right? That location is more than likely the location that has impure limestone. That's how I would have been mapping it. Now, the reason why I speak of it in this way is because it's not ideal for me to be going to that spot without necessary backup, because more than likely that sinkhole could be very, very deep. And just the nature of the the side of the cliff face, you can see that that looks very, very steep. So with that being highlighted, something such as this to be here would have had to be as a result of a violent earthquake. And this is where you can see that the nature of this landscape is such where in the event of that kind of a violent rupturing, this is what more likely could still be the occurrence. Areas where there exists the impure limestone or karstic limestone would more than likely experience sinkhole. Those locations where there is a volcanics and even the areas of the coastal geology, those areas will sink even further. So this is that stark highlight in this respect.